Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, let's take a look at every Premier League club's best teenage footballer from 10 years ago and see where they are now, and also just grading them and how much they've actually lived up to that hype. Right, let's go. Arsenal, Jack Wilshere, the couch, 3 out of 10. Now, go back 10 years ago and the hype surrounding Jack Wilshere was suffocating. At 18 years of age, the guy was playing nearly 50 games in the heart of Arsenal's midfield and suddenly being compared with Xavi and Iniesta, or at the very least, the next Cesc Fabregas. Pep Guardiola then ripped his heart in half when he said the Barcelona B team were littered with players like Wilshere. As soon as he said that, the English media were offended, but was he wrong? That B team had Rafinha, Nolito, Jared Delafeu, Christian Teu and Thiago Alcantara. Wilshere is currently 28 and unemployed, with his daily to-do list probably consisting of eating cheese puffs on the couch in between crying down the phone to his agent. It's a bad sign not even David Moyes wants you at West Ham. Aston Villa, Nathan DELFOUNESO, Bolton Wanderers, 2 out of 10. Oh, poor old Nathan DELFOUNESO. This guy was supposed to be the next big striker coming through at Aston Villa. 10 years ago he was 19, ripping up underage football, winning the Golden Boot at the Under-19 European Championship and scoring in the Premier League against Blackpool, his future employers. Lads, Gavin Bonlor might be seen as a bit of a disappointment at Villa Park, but in comparison to DELFOUNESO's career, he looks like the second coming of Ronaldo. So what happened to DELFOUNESO? Well, injuries, loss of form and the arrival of Darren Bent chewed up his Villa career, and instead of becoming England number 9, he's had a career of lower league football. If you told him 10 years ago that he'd end up playing for Bolton at 29 years of age, even then he'd be a bit underwhelmed, but tell him that it's a Bolton team in League 2, playing in a stadium named after a goddamn university, and stuck in a relegation battle with Grimsby and Mansfield Town? Oh good Christ, he'd probably drown himself in the bath. Brighton, Jake Forster-CASKEY, Charlton Athletic, 5 out of 10. Lads, you've probably all forgotten now, but Jake Forster-CASKEY was supposed to be the big thing coming through at Brighton. 10 years ago he was a 16-year-old midfielder, rejecting interest from Arsenal and Aston Villa, and became Brighton's youngest ever first teamer against the Oval in 2010. But 10 years later, no, he never did play for England, and it gets worse. This Albion prospect has never even played in the Premier League. At 26, he's currently stuck in League 1 with Charlton, taking orders from Lee Bowyer. Just a bit of an anticlimax. Burnley, WES FLETCHER Chorley FC, 3 out of 10. I doubt many of you remember this guy, but WES FLETCHER was an underage goal machine for Burnley. 10 years ago, he was a 19-year-old striker, making his debut in League Cup games, and considering the hype, he was expected to wind up in the first team alongside Charlie Austin. No, it never happened. It's been spells at York, Motherwell, the New Saints FC out the backyards of Wales, and finally at 29, he stuffed on a pudding pitch, finishing bottom of the National League with Chorley FC. Chelsea, GAEL, KAKUTA, RC Lons, 3 out of 10. Lads, the younger viewers might think their recent Chelsea transfer ban was a novelty. No, it also happened 10 years ago, mainly over the illegal signing of GAEL KAKUTA. All that fuss over his signature, you'd have expected him to turn out world class at the very least. He was the club's youngest ever player of the Champions League at 17, was given Premier League cameos under Carlo Ancelotti, but never did anything with his chance. He's had 12 clubs since then, including Bolton, Sevilla, Hebei China Fortune, Rayo Vallecano, and at the age of 29 is currently on loan at Lons from MEX. Just a big fuss about nothing. Crystal Palace, Wilfried Zaha, Crystal Palace, 7 out of 10. Yeah, the only player in this list to still be at the same club they were at in 2010. That's, I've said it a million times, Wilfried Zaha must be furious that he turns 28 this month and is still at Sellers Park. He wants to be playing Champions League football every season, not stuck in a relegation battle under Roy Hodgson. Because for a man of his elite skill level, there is more to life than laying on chances for Jordan Ayew. I mean, come on. An absolute teenage sensation 10 years ago, comparing himself with Messi and Ronaldo. Clearly he had an ego bigger than a spaceship, but he did get his big move to Man United in 2013, but he wasted it. If he ends his career without a single medal, he's going to end up banging his head against the fridge. Absolutely furious that his potential mentor, Sir Alex Ferguson, quit within about 5 minutes of his arrival. If the Scotsman had stayed on for another 5 years, Zaha would arguably be the current Anthony Martial. Everton, Jack Rodwell, Sheffield United, 1 out of 10. Yeah, relegation battles with Sheffield United might seem like an anticlimax for a Jack Rodwell once held up as the next Steven Gerrard, but lads, let's be honest, he is lucky to still have a Premier League contract at all. Yes, a decade ago he was 19, a Toffees underage monster, playing over 30 games in Everton's midfield and scoring in famous wins over Man United. But since then, his potential has been stapled to the Etihad bench. He went nearly 40 games without a win at Sunderland, which clearly pushes confidence through a toaster. 2 relegations later, his brain was clearly so scrambled he was talking up his international hopes, despite training with the Sunderland under-23s at League 1. That's like Wagner talking about headlining Glastonbury next summer. No, someone called the men in white coats. So yeah, 29, he's very much stuck in the Sheffield United wilderness, with Chris Wilder more likely to play his dog in midfield than Rodwell. Fulham, Alexander KAKANIKLIC, Hammarby, 4 out of 10. Yeah, remember that transfer that took Paul Konchesky from Fulham to Anfield? I know, most Liverpool fans have mentally tried to block that traumatic memory from their psyche, but yes, Alexander KAKANIKLIC was part of the swap deal, going the other direction. A 19-year-old left winger, he was seen as an emerging talent in the Fulham reserves, and to be fair, he did last 6 years at the club, but now he's 29 and back out in Sweden with Hammarby IF. I guess it didn't really work out for him then. Leeds, Aidan White, 3 out of 10. Yeah, 10 years ago, Aidan White was an emerging teenage wing-back coming through at Leeds, another fella clearly confused by his nationality, picking up underage caps for both England and Ireland. Great, so I'm guessing we were his plan B, but thankfully Stephen Kenny probably doesn't even know he exists. At 29, he's currently stuffed on the Hearts bench in the dregs of Scottish football's second tier, which sounds about as appetizing as giving Martin Yola a bath. Leicester, Liam Moore, Reading, 4 out of 10. If you told Liam Moore about the journey Leicester City were about to embark on this decade, he'd be giddy with excitement, naturally assuming he'd be the one to captain the club to the Premier League from centre back. After all, at 17, he was captaining the youth team to the quarter-finals of the FA Youth Cup. It didn't work out though, and he was sold to Reading for £1.5 million in 2016. After stupidly spending that title-winning campaign on loan at Bristol City, if he'd stayed and just played 5 games, he'd have got his hands on a medal. But no, instead he spent the campaign stuck in a championship relegation dogfight with Scott Wagstaff and an elderly Peter Odemwingie. Wes Morgan lifting that trophy was probably the worst moment of Moore's life. Liverpool, JONJO, Shelvey, Newcastle, 5 out of 10. JONJO Shelvey was supposed to be the next Steven Gerrard. Not only were they next door neighbours, Shelvey is an 18-year-old wonderkid at Anfield, signing from Charlton for £1.7 million in 2010. Sure, he looked like his pastimes might consist of hunting teenage wizards, but on the pitch, the man showed midfield talent and finesse mixed with tough tackles. He made both his Premier League and Europa League debuts that season, and it was only a matter of time before he succeeded Stevie G, right? Wrong. It's since been 3 years at Swansea and now coming up to 5 years at Newcastle. Just 6 England caps, another relegation stamped on his CV. Meh. Man City, John Guidetti, Alaves, 3 out of 10. John Guidetti has failed. I'm sorry, but he has. I know it was always going to be tough breaking into Man City's team, but at reserve level, he was a goal-scoring machine. The powerful Swede scored 13 goals in his first 13 games for Man City under-18s, but he never got a look in under Roberto Mancini. Was instantly dumped out of 5 consecutive loan deals. It was a mixed bag. He did virtually nothing at Burnley or Stoke, bizarrely exploded with 20 goals in 23 games for Feyenoord, and then scored 15 goals for Celtic, but since then, it's been disappointment at Celta Vigo and just failure at Alaves. The next Henrik Larsson, apparently, he wasn't even the next Marcus Allback. What an utter waste. Man United, RAVEL, Morrison, 8 out of Haag, 1 out of 10. Yeah, Man United fans are probably expecting to see Paul Pogba in here, but no lads. Sorry, 10 years ago, RAVEL Morrison was your biggest prospect. A 17-year-old midfielder making his senior debut in the League Cup, ripped the FA Youth Cup apart with goals against Chelsea and Sheffield United. Sir Alex Ferguson called him the best teenage footballer he'd ever seen, but he's just spent a decade backpacking across Western Europe. There were brief English returns where he did nothing, but yeah, now at 27, he's out in Holland with 8 out of Haag. Morrison's career is probably just told as a ghost story to aspiring young kids who think they've made it. Newcastle, Nile Ranger, Spalding United, 1 out of 10. Yeah, another complete waste of time. It was Nile Ranger, not Andy Carroll, who was supposed to give Newcastle a ray of hope back in the days of relegation in 2009. He was a teenage striker coming through, who in his first season had netted 15 goals for their 18s and 7 of the reserve side. He was given a 3.5-year contract, was being given man of the match awards in the Championship, scoring against Coventry and Crystal Palace, even bagged in a goal at Stamford Bridge in a 4-3 League Cup win. He absolutely ran ragged Arsenal at the Emirates, was given a 5-year deal. He was a 19-year-old hotshot. Since then, it's been an utter disaster. The amount of times he was late for training, you are a professional footballer, just set an alarm, go to work. Good Christ, his only meaningful legacy was giving birth to the true Geordie. I mean, not literally, I'd imagine that would probably break your spine. Anyway, at 29, he's finally got a new team, playing for Sunday League side Spalding United in the 7th tier, against teams like Stocksbridge Park Steels, Market Drayton Town, and Glossop North End. I mean, come on, Nile Ranger, what? Just what? Going from terrorising Premier League defences to getting marked out of the game by hungover plumbers on a Saturday. Lads, Sheffield United, Harry Maguire, Man United, 10 out of 10. One of the few emerging talents who actually lived up to the hype. Yeah, 10 years ago, Jacob Maguire, and yes, that is his first name, was 17 and the biggest prospect in Sheffield United's youth team. But the Blades were getting relegated to League One, not in his wildest dreams when he predicted nearly 30 England caps, World Cup goals, and the Manchester United captaincy by 27. Southampton, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Liverpool, 9 out of 10. Listen, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain has gone to have a brilliant career, but a bit like James Milner, not exactly what was predicted. They both started out as jinky wingers. Chamberlain was 17 and tying up a move to Arsenal. Obviously he was going to draw comparisons with Theo Walcott, but a decade later he's a Premier League and European champion and finally playing in central midfield. Only took him 10 years to get to play in his favourite position. Tottenham, ANDROS, Townsend, Crystal Palace, 6 out of 10. Yeah, 2010 was the year Europe was salivating over Gareth Bale, but there was also a slice of hype reserved for ANDROS Townsend. A 19-year-old winger coming through the system, he was tipped to emulate Bale's success. He didn't. Instead, his Tottenham career consists of 9 loan deals, and his England career didn't last long. He was relegated at Newcastle and is now into his 5th season of mid-table mediocrity with Crystal Palace. West Brom, Chris Wood, Burnley, 8 out of 10. Yeah, Chris Wood is another one to live up to the hype. 10 years ago, he was an 18-year-old beanpole striker coming through with the Hawthorns. He was tipped as being a potential 15-goal-a-season Premier League mid-table standard centre forward, and that's exactly what he is at Burnley. Well, maybe not this season. West Ham, Frank Noble, Plymouth Argyle, 2 out of 10. Oh, Frank Noble, what happened? This guy was making his Premier League debut at 18 years of age. He was a West Ham striker coming through the ranks. No, since then he's had 17 different clubs, never lasting anywhere for longer than 2 years. Mental. How is he supposed to settle when he's living out of a suitcase? He's currently 29 at Plymouth Argyle in League One. Wolves, Matt Doherty, Tottenham, 10 out of 10. Yeah, back in 2010, Wolves had just signed Bohemian's teenage right back Matt Doherty for just £75,000. He was making his debut in the FA Cup against Doncaster Rovers before getting his Premier League debut against Liverpool. To be fair, he's gone on to play over 300 times for the club, and at 28 is playing under Jose Mourinho for an outside title challenger. That's probably better than what he'd ever hoped for his career. And that's it for us. I'm in the comments below. Enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.